Great. So hello museum families, and welcome to RBCM at Home Kids, a play date through screens across British Columbia and the world. The previous sessions are recorded, as I just mentioned, and you can find them on our Royal BC Museum YouTube page. My name is Chris O'Connor, and I'm a learning program developer at the Royal BC Museum. The museum and my home is on the territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt nations here in Victoria on Vancouver Island. I'm an uninvited guest on this territory and grateful to live, learn, and raise a family on this land. And this week has been a heavy one, with news of the 215 children from the Kamloops Indian Residential School. Our hearts go out, especially to Indigenous communities across BC and throughout the country, and especially to residential school survivors. It's important for all of us to listen and to understand, and with that, and important for real meaningful action too. And with that in mind, I suggest you rewatch our RBCM at Home Kids session from last September. We'll put the link in the chat and the comment section. This session was with Cooper Island residential school survivor Eddie Charlie and his friend Kristen Spray, and it was during Orange Shirt Day. Many of us wore our orange shirts again this week. And we'll also share in the chat and comment section a resource around residential schools that might further help our understanding. So please do that if you can, no matter that, like, we all need to continue to learn and to listen. So today, because it's the first Wednesday of the month, we're going on our museum field trip. Usually during June, at the museum, the galleries are filled with classes, but not this year because of the pandemic. But we'll pretend like you are visiting in person today. We're gonna go behind the scenes again and meet our curator of invertebrate zoology, Dr. Henry Chung. And we'll see lots of strange animals in jars. Just as a reminder, we last month we visited our history collection and met with our collection manager of history, and we looked at some of the toys in the collection. And today we're that was up on the 8th floor of the collection tower. And today we're actually going to go to the basement of the collection tower. And I'm just going to show you what I'm doing here. So this is our phone, and I'm going to start on Zoom. And then I have this gimbal as well. So this will help keep it stable. So even if I trip, you won't even be able to tell because it'll stay nice and stable. So I'm gonna enter into the meeting here. You're going to see me pop up, and I'm saying if I recording in progress. So we're going to
Oh, Chris, we can't hear you right now. Wait, Chris, we still can't currently hear you, so you just have to unmute yourself.
Great, thank you, Jenny. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we're good now.
Okay, great, excellent. I'm just going to make sure that I'm not forgetting anything, because sometimes that happens. I also have my mask too, because we're going to go, I'm coming away from our space here. So this is the Learning Center, where my office is. And I'm going to put on my mask, because we're going to go into some areas that have the other people. So where I am right now is near the lobby of the museum. And a lot of times, actually, when classes come here to the museum, when we're allowed to have classes come here, a lot of the classes do come to the Learning Center. Usually that space that I was just in would be filled with lots of kids. So we're glad that you're here, at least through the screen. So we're here now. I'm going to turn the camera around just so you can see what I'm seeing. This is our lobby here with our cafe. And now we're allowed to have a little bit more people hang out at the museum. So we put out some tables and chairs. Right now, this week, we're closed on Wednesday, but next week, we're actually going to be opened again on Wednesdays. So, but if you were coming here as a class, you would come into the lobby here. And again, the lobby would be filled. So let's imagine that this whole lobby space is filled with kids and adults. So just do want to do a little check, Jenny. Just can you say something just to make sure that I could hear you?
Hello. Yes.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
Excellent. Okay, so now because we're going to go, and actually, yeah, we're going to go into this building right beside us. I've showed some of you before, but right beside the building, there's this big tower, and we call it our collection tower or our Fanon Tower. So we're going to go into that tower, but instead of going up, we're actually going to go down to the basement, deep, deep down into the basement of the museum. But first, I have to go through this little door. Now we're coming into the, I have to find the right keys so I can get in. So here are the right keys, and I'm going to do the special lock that gets me into this building. Now we're actually in the collection tower. And if some of you visited a couple times ago, we were looking at some of the birds here. These are some of the first birds that were collected in the collection here at the museum. So many of these were collected in the late 1880s, 1890s. So these are old birds. These are like great grandparent birds, that kind of old. And so they're here in this display case, which is really nice for us to see them. So as I said, we're going to go down into the basement, and there might be some times, here, I'll turn my camera around again. There might be some times that I cut out a little bit just because we're going down deep in the basement. So if I do, Jenny will come in and let you know that all is okay. But we're going down into the basement, going down these stairs. And this collection tower, you might even be able to hear my echoing voice because this collection tower is quite large. And this stairwell goes up 4 floors, and each has animals and objects and belongings, and yeah, 14 floors. So, and each floor has a different amount of things. So some floors
You're cutting in and out a little bit there, Chris.
orcas and are filled with birds, some are filled with insects. All right, so can you hear me okay, Jenny?
Yes, now that you're in there, it's a lot better.
Okay, great. All right, so we are here in the invertebrate collection space now. So as I was saying, each of the floors, there's a different focus. And we're in the basement now, and the focus here is invertebrate zoology. So invertebrate things that are without spines. And I'm joined here with my colleague, as I mentioned before, Dr. Henry Chung, who's the curator of invertebrate zoology. So hello, Henry.
Hello.
So So we have a group of families both on Zoom and on Facebook Live. And I was saying, Henry, that you're the curator of invertebrate zoology. What does that mean? What do you?
All right. Well, hello everyone. As curator of invertebrate zoology here at the Royal BC Museum, I work with the collections that you see around you, and I work with invertebrates, most groups of invertebrates except for insects, spiders, and scorpions.
So that's on a whole different floor.
That is correct. That is in the entomology department. And well, you probably will see that or will have seen that in another video.
So when you say there's a collection of things, I'm just going to pan around a little bit so we can see, if it's okay, Henry, if you want to come around this way. Collection means what? What does that mean when you say there's a collection of things?
Okay, well, what we do by collection, we mean the specimens that we collect when we go into the field. And when we do our research, we also acquire specimens. In other words, other people send us specimens. And specimens are examples of invertebrates that we study, that we observe, that we go out and we collect. And we collect them in the collections here because they constitute a record of biodiversity through time and space. And what that simply means is that everything you see around us, around you here, all these specimens, essentially comprise a library of life. In other words, we can actually go to the shelf, pick out a specimen, and see exactly what it looks like. And so having the specimen allows us then to study it, to figure out what it is if we don't know what it is, how it is related to other animals, how other animals are related to us, and how we are all existing within our various ecosystems.
So when you say the word library, I think a lot of us probably think of books in a library because each book tells a certain kind of story and gives a lot of information or knowledge. And you're saying that each tells us what it's like to be in British Columbia.
That's right. That's right. And it's a little bit different from a library of books because, and this is a very important difference. The difference is that not all of the books, let's say we're talking about books, not, if this were a library, not all of the books that we get would have a cover or a title or even any indication of what's in it. So that's the big difference. When we receive specimens or when we see specimens in the field, we don't always know, sometimes we don't know what they are because they may be new species. They may be species we hadn't seen before. They may be species from somewhere else that have traveled into British Columbia or wherever we're studying. And so those are the kind of mysteries we try to figure out every time we go in the field and every time we look at the collections.
So speaking of that, can we look at a couple of things?
We can, sure.
Yeah, so what are some of the things here that you are particularly interested in?
Well,
maybe if we open up this, if we move this, these shelves are very fancy because they move. So Henry's going to show, and this helps to save space. So as Henry's, yeah.
All right, so the shelves are always locked so that they don't move unnecessarily. And the first thing you do before you move a shelf is you go over here and make sure there's nobody here.
Yeah.
On the other side.
Or stray animals or.
Oh, we don't have too many stray animals here, but yes.
Yeah. So then you.
And the reason we have them on rolling shelves is because it saves space. Space is always an important element in the museum because we always have collections coming in, but we don't always have the space.
Yeah, because you have like hundreds of thousands of specimens here.
That's right. That's right. And if we go over here for a little bit to one of our collection managers, how many lots do we have here in the museum?
I think on our last count, we have about 70,000 lots. And a lot can be things like, this is a jar that has one octopus in it. I cataloged this last week. It's a deep sea octopus. So this is one lot because it has sort of a, a number from one collection. But then this is a lot with some worms in it, and there's about 13 worms in that jar. So we might have 70,000 lots, but I think our estimate of specimens, like individuals, I think it's several 100,000. I can't remember what our last, So it really varies. Sometimes we've got a jar with one thing in it, and sometimes we've got jars thousands of things. Then we've got things like some sponges or corals where they're colonial. So we have lots and lots and lots.
Oh, there you go.
Thanks, you.
And we should introduce him. This is Dr. Hugh McIntosh.
Hi, I'm serving as a collection manager. So my job is to assist the curator and to really help keep things running in the collection. So when we get material that comes in, helping make sure that it's cataloged, that it's in our computer database. And like a library, you can also loan specimens. So other scientists who don't live in BC might want to know about related specimens. So they might ask,
Like
hey,
a deep sea octopus.
yeah, so like if they're studying all sorts of deep sea octopus, they might ask, like, can I have this specimen on loan? So like an interlibrary loan, we can pack this up and send it very carefully, pack it up and mail it to someone else around the world so that they can study it, so that they don't have to travel to every museum in the world to see their specimen. So yes, it's part of the running of the collection.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, we have to work in collaboration.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, you.
Okay, now back to our shelf. So this is an example of what the specimen shelves look like when the specimens are put away. You can see here there's a label. And the label is very important because the label tells us what it is, who collected it, where it comes from, and the fluid we use is usually ethanol or alcohol, and that keeps the specimen in good shape. It preserves the specimen, and it helps preserve the tissue structure. Whole, put this back here, arrange the collections. You'll see certain numbers here, and you'll see the important information here are these names here. And we arrange the specimens in this collection by taxon. And what that means, a taxon is a group of animals. And so what that means is we arrange our specimens in the collections generally in taxonomic order, which means that we know where different groups of animals are located. And in knowing that, we can then find it.
Yeah. So if you wanted to find the sea stars, say,
well,
then
it's very appropriate that you should use sea stars as an example because we are in the section here that has kind of more sea stars in the other room, and that's because we, again, because we don't have all the space we would like. We have to arrange things within the space that we do have.
yeah.
And so what we have are some sea stars are in the other room, but it flows into this room.
Yeah.
So yes, so if you wanted to see a sea star, actually the kind of sea star that you're referring to, Chris, would be in the other room, but it flows into here.
Yeah. What about in the big jars in the back there? Maybe that, can you pull one of those jars out?
Let's see.
Make you work a little hard.
Oh, that's all right. All right, so there you go. And you can see that, again, it has a label telling us what it is, and it's in fluid, and there, you notice that there's the labels are inside.
We're losing you a little bit, Chris. Do you want to move back a little bit so we
And
may
that's
be able
because,
to hear a bit
you
better?
can get lost, or you can get in this much better. Okay.
Is that better, Jenny?
Yes, that's a
Can you
lot
come
better.
forward a little bit?
Hi, Jay.
Hello.
Okay, good.
And without a label, the specimen becomes much less valuable to us. Valuable in the sense that the information and the knowledge is lost without the label.
So someone's asking, what is this that we're looking at right now?
Well, this is a sea star from southwest of Berkeley Sound,
Uh-huh.
and this was collected by one of our former curators. Let's see. Yeah, we had a curator here who specialized in sea stars. Now, each curator usually specializes in his or her own group, and I work on cnidarians, but one of our former curators worked on sea stars, and this is what he collected.
And obviously he collected a lot at one time. So
Yes.
like Hugh was saying, all of those are in one lot because they were all collected around the same time.
That is correct. What you want to do when you're collecting is that, if possible, you want to collect more than one example, so you have a few to look at.
Right. So there are some things in jars, and then you have some things that are dry specimens as well, like what I'm looking at right now.
Yes, we do. And
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this actually is not really part of the collection. So this is these two drawers here are examples of specimens that we used for tour groups or students or people like yourself, who would like to look at specimens up close.
Right. So maybe something like these that are part of the collection.
Yeah.
I think these are, especially if people are around Victoria, these were collected at Ogden Point, which is just not that far from the museum here, which are quite interesting because there's a little baby crab as well there. So, and I remember that Heidi, who's the collection manager before, was talking about that these specimens are really interesting because you see the crack. So as the crab is shedding its skin, that you see, and getting its, well, not skin, it would.
It's carapace.
Yeah, carapace. So you're sort of, it died in a moment where that process was happening. So.
Well, that's right. So the way that invertebrates grow are very different than a lot of the animals that we're used to. Now, in this example of crabs, because crabs have a hard shell, that shell doesn't grow when the animal changes its body size. So what they have to do is they actually have to secrete a new shell, right? But in order to fit in that new shell, and they have to then get out of the old one. And so, am I running out?
No.
Okay. And so that's what you're seeing here. Other invertebrates, for example, will grow by simply replicating another body part that looks exactly like itself, essentially a copy of itself. So invertebrates can produce, sexually or asexually. They can bud like plants. They can grow in all kinds of different ways.
So Henry, we have a question from Ralph who asks, do you ever collect live specimens?
Hi, Ralph. Yes, we do. Sometimes the only way to identify, or well, let me rephrase that. Sometimes the most effective way to identify a species is to look at it while it's alive, because when the specimens are preserved and put in fluid, sometimes their body parts will contract, and that makes it very hard to see their details, the functions, and so on. So in the field, for example, in field stations, we will have what are called we call them wet tables, and wet tables have seawater pumped in them. And when we collect specimens that are alive, we put them in this table so that we can study them and photograph them while they are alive.
But usually you wouldn't, but sometimes you do.
Well, yeah,
because it's about preserving them for hundreds of years, right? So
yes. Well, the reason that we ultimately preserve them is that we want the specimens to last over time, and the reason for that is because our knowledge is continuously growing, and so we may have insight into the specimen 100 years later that we wouldn't necessarily have now. And so we preserve them not only for ourselves, but for future scientists as well.
mm-hmm. It's interesting. I'm just thinking last month, we were looking at the toy collection and in history and talking about how toys change over time and interest in toys. Same thing in a very different way, but similar with scientific knowledge, is that new information comes, new technology comes, new ways of understanding come about, but having these specimens here provide us an opportunity to grow and build that knowledge.
That is
so
correct.
Yeah,
That's right, and share that knowledge.
Yeah, great. If anyone has any other questions, just feel free to put it in the chat or the comment section on Facebook Live. Henry, I just wanted to see if we can go through this door here.
We can. Let me first turn the lights on. And earlier, I was saying about an overflow. So this is the main wet collection space. And you can see a lot more cabinets.
Yeah. So yeah, just cabinet on top of cabinet on top of cabinet. So when Hugh talked about hundreds of thousands of individual specimens, and you see how this space sort of can hold that many.
That's right. And if you have a minute, I will show you a very special collection.
Yeah, please.
Behind me here, you can see, actually here, these three cabinets here have the same type of collections in fluid, but they're very special, and they're called the type collection. And what type collections are that they are collections of the actual specimen from which a new species is described from. So when scientists describe a new species, they select a specimen as the type specimen. And what that means is that is the original specimen that represents that species. So again, in the future, if somebody wants to come back and study an animal that may by that time have either been extinct or have not been seen again, they can come to the collection and actually take that specimen out and look at it along with the scientific paper which describes it and have it right there. And so that's a very important record.
Mhm.
And so these are specimens from BC and from elsewhere, but mostly from BC. And then these are very special, and that's why they are.
They have special cabinets
Right.
to make sure that they stay safe.
That's right. And so
Great.
we deposit our own type specimens here as well as other scientists. And we also deposit type specimens in other museums because if something happens here, we still have examples in other museums.
So we're just coming to the end, Henry, and thank you so much for sharing your time with us. This is not your area, but if we go through this door here, and if you could turn on the light, because the theme this month is around orcas and whales. But also I think it's a good reminder that even though Henry looks at and studies invertebrates, so animals without spines, he's never that far away from some animals with spines. So here's a huge, beautiful moose that just hangs out in this room. And then you'll see that in this room, there are, we'll go across past the moose. There are all these, here are some whale ribs. And there's a whale skull, some other taxidermy. So this is just a little teaser for the rest of the month. We're going to be talking about whales and exploring whales. So though today we're looking at things without spines, this is just like a little teaser for the following couple weeks in June. So thank you, Henry. I'll put you in the picture with the moose. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if there are no other questions out there, then we'll say goodbye for now.
Thank you all.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone.